Part 19. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Chao-Ji Depeng. Chapter 182. When the devil mermaid quickly dived downwards, Zhenkinzan's eyebrows condensed, and he immediately shook the 4 cauldrons, spraying out rays of light, as if he wanted to use his means to keep the devil mermaid. Brother Zhen, wait a moment. Seeing this scene, Chen Ronghuo quickly stopped him. If you kill this devil mermaid, the most you can do is get one of its skirts and refine it into a sail. This doesn't have much effect on him now. Compared with this, Chen Ronghuo knew that this devil mermaid could activate the small movement formation here and allow people to move directly to the crazy sword town. This was its greatest role. Maybe he will be able to use it sometime. Being stopped by Chen Ronghuo, Zhenkinzan was a little surprised, wondering what Chen Ronghuo had planned. At this time, the sea water rolled back, and the suction force coming from the bottom of the sea became even greater. Faintly, everyone seemed to be sucked into an unknown place with this suction. At this time, after feeling this change, Zhenkinzan seemed to suddenly think of something and said, "Lord, there seems to be a moving formation on the bottom of the sea here. This change at this time should be the change that occurred after the shifting formation was opened. It's too late for us to leave the envelope here laterally. Therefore, if you want to avoid this formation, you can only fly higher." At this time, the ship beneath them was still in mid-air. Just because of the suction below, even if 30 oarsmen rowed wildly, the boat was still sinking gradually. You can avoid this moving formation by flying high. Hearing Zhenkinzan's words, Chen Ronghuo's eyes flashed, and he immediately said, "Then do you have any way to allow this ship and other people to land safely after we leave through the moving formation?" This. Zhenkinzan was shocked when he heard this. "Lord, I do have a way to land our ship safely, but after the ship lands, what if the devil mermaid comes out again? Also, I don't know where the other side of the land is. If we go there, if there is any danger there." "Don't worry, the devil mermaid is seriously injured and will not be able to come out in a short time. Besides, I know where this moving place leads." Chen Ronghuo shook his head and said, "There may be some dangers there, but with our strength, there is no problem. Big." When he said this, he immediately turned around and said, "Ho-san, you will lead the team back to the town later. Brother Zhen, Huanglin, please come with me and pass through this moving formation to take a look at the opposite side of the moving formation." Several people communicated through soul transmission, so they spoke very fast. It only took a moment for them to communicate. After making the decision, Chen Ronghuo immediately flew down from the ship, then dropped the power of his soul on the ship, controlled the ship, and headed for the spaceship in the distance. The weight of this big ship is huge, and there are dozens of people on it. It is impossible for him to arrest the entire ship with the power of his soul by himself. But when he was using his method, Zhenkinzan could only fly down and start to help as well. Zhenqian-san is a third-level cultivator. Coupled with the weirdness of the heart formation warlock and his own powerful talent, his strength is now far stronger than Chen Ronghao. With his help, the big ship finally moved. In the process, he formed a seal in his hand and quickly imprinted a floating formation on the big ship. Because this suspension formation was imprinted in a hurry, its effect is limited. But it can prevent the ship from crashing into the sea all at once after they teleport away. Rumble. Using various means, the large ship, which weighed an unknown number of kilograms, flew high into the sky at an extremely fast speed. This scene made the 5 siren horses below look extremely shocked. They never thought that such a huge creature could fly so fast. Meow. At this time, Shamao, who had been staying on the boat and was a little confused about what happened, saw that Chen Ronghuo wanted to abandon him and leave alone. After shouting, he immediately used the wind control technique, and whoosh flying into Chen Ronghuo's arms. "What are you doing here?" Chen Ronghuo was a little helpless. but the fat cat stuck its head into his arms and refused to leave no matter what. Seeing this, Chen Ronghuo could only take it with him. At this time, after the big ship flew far away, the huge suction force coming from the sea water increased to a certain extent, and then suddenly there was a roar, and the suction force reached the extreme. Under this huge suction force, Chen Ronghuo and others were all drawn into a huge whirlpool of sea water in an instant. Viewed from above, this sea water whirlpool looks like the mouth of a giant beast. After opening, it swallowed everyone in one bite. After Chen Ronghuo and others disappeared, they lost the support of several people. The big ship flying high in the sky was supported for a moment by the suspension formation deployed by Zhenkinzan in advance, and finally fell into the water with a bang. Fortunately, Zhenkinzan's formation was quite reliable. After the big ship fell into the sea, although it made a deep hole, it did not sink completely into the sea in the end. And just as the big ship was returning to Lushwiven town under the command of Ho San and Hai Tianyue, a large shadow emerged from the place where the devil mermaid had lost its trace. In the shadow, the devil mermaid stared with a pair of fish eyes, watching the departing ship from a distance, and finally disappeared back into the water, but did not make a move. Crazy Blade Town. Outside a mysterious palace at the bottom of the Devil Fish Lake, 7 or 8 figures flashed and suddenly appeared here. Although this palace is located at the bottom of the lake, it seems to be covered by some strange formation, and the water in the lake cannot enter here at all. At the same time, from the outside, there is nothing unusual here. What is this? As soon as he entered here, Chen Ronghuo showed a look of surprise. He looked at the huge palace, only to see that this palace was rough in style and hundreds of meters high, not like a human. At the same time, the door of this palace was open. Through the open door, you can see a huge white crystal inside. In the crystal, there is actually a huge devil mermaid over 50 meters tall. The Devil Mermaid King's Palace contains the mermaid song formation, and those who trespass will lose their minds and walk out again unknowingly. The corpse of the 5th level Devil Mermaid King use the forbidden method of the mermaid clan and the marrow of the ocean to seal the corpse and a wisp of residual soul, seeking resurrection. Remaining resurrection time, 3 years. During this period, you cannot be disturbed. Once disturbed, you will die completely. When Chen Ronghuo identified the properties of this palace and the huge devil mermaid corpse in the palace, a strange look suddenly appeared on his face. Before, he let go of the 3rd level devil mermaid because of the matter of moving the formation, but he didn't expect that he would actually get a bigger devil mermaid at this time. And it's the Devil Mermaid King. Please don't subscribe to the next chapter. For the time being there is a bug, the chapter is repeated and cannot be deleted. I can only find the editor to solve it tomorrow. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 184. 3 years. When it was determined that the Devil Mermaid King would be resurrected in 3 years, Chen Ronghuo's eyes flashed. He is now only a 2nd level cultivator, and is still a little far away from the 3rd level. With his qualifications, if he practiced normally without a lot of power of faith or the assistance of other geniuses, he would probably have just broken through to the 3rd level in 3 years. The further you go in practicing, the more difficult it becomes. Even if he can gain a lot of power of faith in these 3 years, it can only ensure that he can go further on the road to the 3rd level. As for whether it can reach the 4th level, it is still unknown. But even if he can reach the 4th level, he is still far behind the Devil Mermaid King. As for reaching the 5th level within 3 years, this is almost out of the question. If this terrifying monster were resurrected, it would probably destroy the entire White Mist Island immediately. After trying it, Chen Ronghuo knew that if he consumed a lot of the energy accumulated in the ancient books, he could seal the formation outside the Devil Mermaid King's palace. In addition, Jin Qian San is a psychic magician. If he could deduce the mermaid song formation through ancient books and secretly describe it, it would not be impossible to break this formation with the ability of the formation Qian-san. But in this case, he would only get a dress from the Devil Mermaid King in the end. Refining it into a sail may be useful for him to conquer the archipelago in the future. But such a use is definitely not as useful as a living 5th level Devil Mermaid King. I don't know if I can conquer this Devil Mermaid King. Chen Ronghuo was confused. And through trying, he discovered that there was actually such a method. It's just that if he wants to deduce this method through ancient books, it requires too much energy. Even if he consumes all the energy accumulated in ancient books over such a long time, it will not be enough. Wait a minute, Chen Ronghuo glanced at the 5th level Devil Mermaid King in the palace. There are still 3 years left. In these 3 years, I will try my best to improve my strength. As my strength increases, the ability of the ancient book will become stronger. If being able to find a way to conquer this Devil Mermaid King within 3 years. Chen Ronghuo thought in his heart. If he can find a way to conquer this Devil Mermaid King within 3 years, then his gains will be really great. Moreover, even if the matter fails in the end, it will not be a big loss for him. 3 years later, even if he can't find a way, he can re-enter this place and interrupt the resurrection of the Devil Mermaid King so that it cannot cause chaos. When Chen Ronghuo's eyes were fixed on the Devil Mermaid King in the palace, the people around him, together with the 5 burly siren horses with 6 thick legs, all saw the huge Devil Mermaid King. They all showed a look of horror. The previous Devil Mermaid, even if it gathered endless sea water, was only 50 meters tall in the end. And this Devil Mermaid King, in body alone, has surpassed the mid-level 3rd order Devil Mermaid. Based on this alone, you can imagine how powerful this guy is. Lord Huanglin and others looked at Chen Ronghuo. Except for Chen Ronghuo, no one among them could see what state this Devil Mermaid King was in. Therefore, everyone was frightened in their hearts. It doesn't matter, Chen Ronghuo shook his head and said, this thing is already a dead thing, we don't need to worry about it. In addition, there is a powerful formation in front of this palace. With our current strength, we cannot make any plans against it. While saying this, Chen Ronghuo turned his eyes and landed on the 5-headed 2nd order peak siren horse not far away from them. These 5 big guys are amazingly powerful in the sea. Even on land, the strength is probably not too weak. But he didn't know how these guys could help him deal with the Devil Mermaid before. Seeing Chen Ronghuo, the 5-headed siren horse was suddenly startled. The strength of Chen Ronghuo and others is far stronger than them. Although they had helped Chen Ronghuo just now, who knew what Chen Ronghuo was doing? So when they saw Chen Ronghuo, the 5 of them immediately twisted their black buttocks and quickly ran towards the water outside the palace. After a short period of observation, they have explored clearly and know that there is no trace of their mother here, but through smell, they can smell a trace of their mother's breath. The place where that breath finally disappeared was in the water outside. Seeing these 5 big guys leaving, a strange look flashed in Chen Ronghuo's eyes, but he did not stop them. Bo! In a moment, the 5 siren horses walked out of the invisible barrier. Mermaid Illusion Array, it can transform into various scenes, confuse the enemy, and is difficult to detect. Water Avoidance Array, can avoid water. Through identification, Chen Ronghuo knew that the invisible barrier was actually composed of 2 formations. Following his thoughts, he looked at Zhenkinzan and Huanglin and said, let's leave here too. The water outside is the Devil's Fish Lake in the Crazy Knife Town. Remember to be careful after you go out. If possible, wait for Huanglin to take action and see if you can lure Nai Kuangdao out of his territory. Lord, are you going to take action against the Crazy Blade City? Hearing Chen Ronghuo's words, both Zhenkinzan and Huanglin were shocked. Crazy Knife Town is an important town. There are only 13 important towns in the entire Beiwu Island. 3 of the 13 important towns have died. If one more dies, there will be less than 10. If possible. Chen Ronghuo nodded. This matter is only about interests, not justice. He and Nai Quangdao have no conflict, but under the situation of Beiwu Island, even if they don't have a conflict now, they will most likely have a conflict in the future. Not to mention, Nai Quangdao is an ally of Wenjing Gluo in Yuanhe Town. Yuanhe Town, Longtan Town, Mentang Town, these three important towns, Yuanhe Town is the closest to their Lushwivan Town. And during this period, Yuanhe Town is also forcing their Lushwivan Town. Therefore, Chen Ronghuo wants to get rid of Nai Quangdao. Firstly, he wants to seize the power of faith of Quangdao Town, and secondly, he wants to find something for Wenjing Gluo to do so that Wenjing Gluo will not bother them again. Otherwise, according to Chen Ronghuo's estimation, it has been so long since the three major towns have divided up the territories of the four towns including Tongluo. If he does not make any moves, someone will lose patience and plan to attack him. As for attacking Wenjing Gluo directly, it is not advisable. Because he still needs to use Wenjing Gluo to help him contain Longtan Town. Boom! Suddenly, just as Chen Ronghuo was thinking this, he suddenly heard a series of roars outside. The roar was so loud that it seemed like a huge wave rising high and then crashing down. Thanks to Xioxiazg Killer for 500 coins, I am ABC Hoj for 500 coins, and Duiwen for 100 coins. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 185. In the Devil's Fish Lake, Wenjing Gluo and Nai Quangdao, who had escaped inside, searched for a while and finally found the mid-level third-order sea monster horse that didn't know how it got here. They had no secret method and could not subdue such demons, so they had nothing to say and immediately started fighting with them. Wenjing Gluo's actions were extremely weird. He reached out and grabbed it, and unexpectedly pulled out an illusory black pen. With a big stroke, he wrote the word water and the word dragon in a moment. As soon as these two words came out, the rolling lake water around his body suddenly condensed into a water dragon that was 20 to 30 meters long, and rushed towards the huge six-legged sea monster horse that was also more than 20 meters long. At the same time, at the feet of him and Nai Quangdao, there were also the words avoiding water. Under the influence of these two words, all the lake water that was close to the two of them was pushed out far away. These words are obviously his masterpiece. At the same time, Nai Quangdao on the side also pulled out his own sword. He slashed out with his sword and slashed forward with a white streak. The mighty sword energy strangled everything, trying to annihilate and devour the third-order sea monster horse. Boom! Facing the incoming water dragon and sword energy, the huge sea monster lowered its head, then raised it up with a roar, and actually controlled a large area of sea water to form a thick wall of water in front of itself. It was just that when it fought alone with Nai Quangdao in the water, it was able to tie with Nai Quangdao. Now that there are more Wen meridians, he is immediately at a disadvantage. The thick wall of water had just formed when it was blasted away by the water dragon and sword energy. It was only the siren horse's rough skin and thick flesh that prevented it from being directly exploded. Nai Quangdao was a sky warrior in the middle of the third level, and Wenjing Gluo was a magic pen warlock in the early third level. With the two of them joining forces, their strength was revealed, but in just a moment, the sea monster horse was tired of dealing with it. Ho ho ho! But just when the two were about to succeed and kill the sea monster horse, 5 behemoths 8 or 9 meters long rushed out from below the battlefield where the two people and the sea monster horse were. In the huge roar, layers of water waves were shaken, and they rushed towards the Wen meridian like crazy. Brother Nai, what's going on? Didn't you say there is a sea monster horse here? Wenjing Gluo glanced across the scene. When he saw 5 more siren horses coming, his expression changed and he quickly turned his head. Naikwangdao was also a little confused. It was true that there was only one before. I don't know if these 5 hadn't come out before or if they just came here, Naikwangdao said with an ugly face, but these 5 sea monster horses are not even at the 3rd level. With our strength, it can still be solved. Brother Wen, I'll hold back this big siren horse first, and you can deal with these 5 little siren horses, and then come and help me. Good. Wen Jingluo thought for a moment and agreed. At this time, he was already riding a tiger and it was difficult to get off. If the trouble here is not completely solved this time, and Naikwangdao has these siren horses to restrain him from now on, then his so-called alliance with them will be just a joke. Ho ho ho. At this time, when the large siren horse saw his children, he also ran here, and his huge and plump horse's face suddenly changed. It's just that Naikwangdao stepped on the word avoid water and danced the knife in his hand wildly, making it unable to escape. What's going on? Did those 5 big guys meet the enemy just after they went out? At the same time, in the Devil Mermaid King's palace, Chen Ronghuo suddenly became confused after hearing the huge noise coming from outside. Just listening to the noise outside, the sound just now was loud, but it didn't seem like a 2nd-level cultivator was fighting. Naikwangdao? Thoughts raced in Chen Ronghuo's mind. If such a big movement was spread, it was unlikely that Naikwangdao would not appear. It's even possible that this movement was caused by Naikwangdao. Let's go. Thinking of this, Chen Ronghuo immediately hugged Fat Cat and rushed outside the water avoidance formation. Bo. As soon as a few people left the water shelter, the rolling sea water immediately approached them. However, before the lake water could get closer, Zhenqian-san waved his hand, and the 4 cauldrons he made good use of erupted with some thin light, guarding several people inside. This light is not only thin, but can also prevent the breath from spreading. Therefore, when several people rushed out of the water shelter, no one saw them. When the lake was blocked, everyone looked up, and with the eyesight of a few people, they could faintly see a few blurry figures above the lake. Is it really Naikwangdao? When he saw the figure fighting with the 3rd-order sea monster horse, Chen Ronghuo was suddenly startled. He didn't expect that before he went to find this figure actually came to his mouth. Moreover, he continued to raise his head, and then his eyes fell on another figure. Wen Jingluo. After seeing Wen Jingluo appearing here, Chen Ronghuo's eyes suddenly flashed crazily. Whoosh! The next moment, he waved his hand, and he took out the 3rd-level demon puppet that he had refined from the storage ring. He followed him and said through his soul, "Do it. Huanglin, keep an eye on Wen Jingluo first, don't let him escape. Zhenqian-san, you come with me to kill Naikwangdao first, and then leave Wen Jingluo behind." He wanted to kill Naikwangdao before, instead of attacking Wen Jingluo first. He wanted to keep Wen Jingluo and let him help contain the important town of Longtan. At the same time, this is also because, if he attacks any of the 2, the other will definitely be alert and will not easily leave his territory. But now, both of them have come to him, so why should he not swallow them? As for restraining the important town of Longtan, when he takes the power of faith of 2 important towns in a row, there is no way he cannot advance to the 3rd level. Not only him, but Huanglin will probably be able to advance with him. At that time, with Zhenqian-san, the magic puppet, and Changsun Zhengzin who can help him sit in the Lord's mansion, what is he going to do with restraining the important town of Longtan? Just destroy it? Hearing Chen Ronghuo's words, Zhenqian-san and Huanglin on the side were shocked, and they thought of the key at the same time. Whoosh! Huanglin's figure flashed, and in an instant, he disappeared into nothingness in the water. His ability is extremely powerful, and even in the lake, there is no sign of it. When Huanglin disappeared, the 4 large tripods summoned by Zhenqian-san shook, and then a huge force rose up, carrying Chen Ronghuo and flying straight towards Naikwangdao above. At the same time, Under the control of Chen Ronghuo, the demon puppet broke through the lake water and rushed towards Nai Quangdao as if nothing happened. What's going on? This time, Chen Ronghuo and his men made a lot of noise, and Nai Quangdao immediately sensed it. When he saw several people rushing out from the bottom of the lake and rushing towards him, his face suddenly changed. You! He shouted loudly, then grabbed the big knife in his hand and was about to withdraw. But as soon as he moved his body, Zhenkinzan pinched his fingers and made the 4 large tripods spray out the 4 kinds of spiritual energy of earth, water, wind, and fire. The spiritual energy spread, and in an instant it was woven into a mysterious picture covering hundreds of meters. The picture shook, and a huge aura rose up, which immediately made Nai Quangdao's figure stagnate in place. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 186. Nai Quangdao saw that his body was stagnant, as if he was stuck in a quagmire. The huge energy emitted by the mysterious atlas woven by the 4 spiritual energies of earth, water, wind, and fire that flew from afar was like a mountain, pressing him so hard that he could hardly even straighten his waist. His face suddenly changed. Open! Then he suddenly roared. He raised his strength and released all his mighty blood and chi, turning it into a rolling blood and chi wolf smoke, rushing upward, and finally broke the suppression of the mysterious atlas condensed by the 4 spiritual energies. Then, as his body retreated violently, he swung the knife in his hand, and with a bang, the blood and chi wolf smoke above his head was swung out with this knife, turning into a blood-red knife light that seemed to condense infinite evil spirits. As soon as this blood-red knife light came out, it immediately intercepted Chen Ronghuo and others from a distance. This move of his was a move that consumed his potential. It was a forbidden technique. Once this forbidden technique is used, the blood and chi will drop immediately, and it may be difficult to recover within 1 or 2 years. At this time, Nai Quangdao was really anxious. In fact, his cultivation is higher than Zhenkinzan. In addition, as the lord of an important town, he naturally has a trump card. Fighting alone, Zhenkinzan alone may not be his opponent. But if he adds the sea monster horse of the same level as him, the magic puppet with amazing speed, and Chen Ronghuo, if he hesitates for a moment, he will die. Boom! After the terrifying blood-red knife light collided with Zhenkinzan's mysterious formation diagram, it carried a monstrous divine power and tore Zhenkinzan's mysterious formation diagram apart like a dead tree and rotten wood. Then it continued to attack Zhenkinzan and Chen Ronghuo under the formation diagram. After breaking through the formation diagram, although the power of this knife was reduced a lot, it still had the attack power of the 3rd level mid-stage. This scene made Chen Ronghuo and Zhenkinzan jump in their hearts. They didn't expect Nai Quangdao to have such strength. With his eyes flashing wildly, Chen Ronghuo quickly identified the sword energy. Blood evil sword energy, the sword energy that is blessed by one's own original blood and chi. After using this move, the original blood and chi are greatly damaged, and it takes a long time to repair before it can be restored. After identifying the origin of the sword energy, Chen Ronghuo breathed a sigh of relief. Only then did he know that although this move was terrifying, Nai Quangdao could probably only use it once. Thinking of this, Chen Ronghuo's eyes flashed coldly, and with a wave of his hand, he immediately consumed part of the energy of the ancient book and used the ancient book sealing technique to seal the remaining sword energy emitted by this move. He needed to fight quickly at this time, even if he consumed all the energy of the ancient book. Because this time, as long as he won the faith power of the 2 major towns of Quangdao and Yuan, he might be able to break through to the 3rd level in a short time. After he breaks through to the 3rd level, the speed at which the ancient book accumulates energy will far exceed the current speed. Just when Chen Ronghuo was thinking about this, Nai Quangdao thought that he would be able to shake off Chen Ronghuo and others with his forbidden move and escape quickly, but he saw that Chen Ronghuo did not know what method he used, but just waved his hand lightly, and his fierce sword energy, which was comparable to the attack of a third-level mid-stage cultivator, dissipated. Seeing this scene, his eyes widened, and his old heart almost jumped out. What method is this? Not only was he surprised, but Zhenkinzan next to Chen Ronghuo was also surprised. But in the surprise, Zhenkinzan's reaction was very fast. He pinched the seals in his hands, and after a moment, he used the 4 large tripods around him to summon a mysterious atlas as huge as before, and suppressed Nai Kuangdao. After using that forbidden technique, Nai Kuangdao was already at the end of his strength. At this time, he was suppressed by Zhenkinzan again, and he was frozen in place, unable to break free for a while. The demon puppet released by Chen Ronghuo was already close to Nai Kuangdao. As long as the demon puppet took action, Nai Kuangdao would be killed in an instant. Boom! But at this moment, the huge sea monster horse, which finally reacted, also seized the opportunity and rushed over. With a boom, it hit Nai Kuangdao with its head, bringing the surging lake water, and knocked him far away. Puff! When Nai Kuangdao flew out, he spit out a mouthful of blood and his face was as pale as paper. But for this, he showed a hint of excitement. Because the sea monster horse's collision helped him a lot. It freed him from the suppression and confinement of Zhenkinzan's mysterious atlas. If there was no sea monster horse to help, when the demon puppet arrived, it would definitely not just hit him. When Nai Kuangdao was excited, Chen Ronghuo couldn't help but glance over his head and set his eyes on the sea monster horse that was more than 20 meters long. Seeing the excitement of the big sea monster horse, the corner of his mouth twitched. Is this guy helping them or Nai Kuangdao? Although the sea monster horse's attack just now was very powerful, Nai Kuangdao was a mid-level third-order warrior after all, with a strong physique and strong resistance to these attacks. Although he was hit hard again by this attack, it did not mean that he had no power to escape. While Chen Ronghuo was speechless, Nai Kuangdao, after escaping from the suppression of Zhenkinzan's atlas, immediately flashed his body and quickly rushed to the direction above the lake, where Wenjing Gluo was. Brother Nai, what's going on? Where did these people come from? At this time, Wenjing Gluo's eyebrows were also beating violently. He thought he could quickly deal with the 5 peak second-level sea monster horses. But he didn't expect that these 5 guys were so tough and strong that he not only failed to deal with them quickly, but after Chen Ronghuo and others suddenly appeared, he was shocked and surrounded by these big guys, so that he couldn't get away quickly. It's the magic puppets of the Moli family. These people must be the remnants of the Moli family. Nai Kuangdao shouted quickly. At this time, there was a cloud of fog covering Zhenkinzan and Chen Ronghuo. This cloud of fog was summoned by Zhenkinzan, which could cover the aura and appearance of the two. So Nai Kuangdao didn't recognize them. Nai Kuangdao's voice was very loud, like a dragon's roar. His words were not only for Wenjing Gluo. He wanted to spread the sound far away to attract other strong men, so that Chen Ronghuo and others would be afraid and give up chasing him. The remnants of the Moli family. Wenjing Gluo was terrified when he heard this. He shouted hurriedly, "Brother Nai, come and help me. You are seriously injured now. Even if you escape back to the territory, I am afraid they will catch up with you. Only if the two of us are together, there is a glimmer of hope." At this time, 5 sea monster horses at the peak of the second level surrounded him like a wall. It is not impossible for him to escape, and it does not take too long. Even if he just spends a little time, he can kill these 5 sea monster horses. But all this is time. At this time, if he delays even a little time, his life will be in danger. But Nai Kuangdao ignored him when he heard this. His figure flashed wildly and he was about to leave Wenjing Gluo. He is now only 1/10 of his combat power, and he has to maintain his physical strength to escape. How can he have the time to save Wenjing Gluo? In fact, when he just shouted, he had already regarded Wenjing Gluo as a chess piece. He planned to use Wenjing Gluo to delay Chen Ronghuo and others, and he would take this opportunity to escape. As for what Wenjing Gluo said, even if he fled back to the territory, he would be caught up by Chen Ronghuo and others. Although it was true, but according to his estimation, by the time he returned to the territory, the lords of other territories closer to him would almost arrive. Puff! Just as Nai Quangdao was thinking about it, a figure suddenly appeared from behind him, and then a hand suddenly stretched out, like a cone, and pierced him through the back of his heart. He suddenly turned around and saw a cold and ruthless figure who appeared behind him at some point and looked at him expressionlessly. You! Nai Quangdao showed an extremely unbelievable look. He couldn't believe that he had been killed like this. When Nai Quangdao turned around, the figure who stretched out a big hand and passed through his back suddenly closed his palm at this time, and with a puff, he tore open a bright red thing that was dripping with blood from Nai Quangdao's body. This is the heart. A broken heart means that Nai Quangdao, who is just a warrior, can no longer survive. Thanks to Strange Zixi people for 1000 coins, Mou Shi for 100 coins, Heart Hurts and It Hurts for 100 coins, and Book Friend Read and Write Good Guys for 100 coins. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Chao Ji Dupang. Chapter 187. Nai Quangdao died. Wenjing Gluo, who was originally angry at Nai Quangdao for ignoring him, suddenly showed a look of horror. The place where Nai Quangdao died was not far from him. That is to say, before that, the person who killed Nai Quangdao was probably hiding near him. A deep chill emerged in his heart. What made him even colder was that after killing Nai Quangdao, the person glanced at him lightly, and then disappeared again with a flash of his figure. Even if he released the power of his soul, he didn't know where the person was hiding. Big Water Dragon. Wenjing Gluo took a deep breath, holding the illusion, and writing these 3 words out of thin air again. After these 3 words appeared, the lake water around his body was immediately gathered by him, combined with these 3 big words, and turned into a huge water dragon of 40 or 50 meters long. Roar! The water dragon roared, circled Wenjing Gluo, and swung its tail, swinging the 5 sea monster horses surrounding him away. Then the dragon body of the water dragon flipped, carrying him and rushing upward. After doing all this, Wenjing Gluo's face was extremely pale. His move was similar to the bloody knife energy that Nai Quangdao had used before, both of which were forbidden moves. Once used, they would fall into a weak state afterwards, and it would take a long time to recover. Whoosh! While escaping, Wenjing Gluo waved his hand and suddenly took out 3 black beads, smashing them at Chen Ronghuo and others. Dark Water Mine, a one-time second-level top-grade secret treasure, a large-scale attack secret treasure. Chen Ronghuo's eyes flashed, and after identifying the properties of the 3 beads, he immediately said to Zhenkinzan, 3 second-level top-grade water mines, just block them. Zhenkinzan, who was hesitant, was relieved immediately. Second-level water mines, even if there were 3, were not difficult for him to deal with. He spun the 4 Spirits Atlas in his hand, using it to control the surrounding lake water, and moved the 3 water mines to a distance. Zizi, bang, bang. However, as soon as Zhenkinzan moved, Wenjing Gluo, who was riding on the huge water dragon, had a cold light flash in his eyes and controlled the 3 dark water mines to explode. Countless blue and purple electric lights flashed wildly in the water, like wild snakes dancing wildly. As the electric lights burst, the lake water also rolled violently. The 5 sea monster horses that were close were blown over and over, with burnt black lines on their bodies. Disposable secret treasures are usually much more powerful than secret treasures of the same level that can be used for a long time. These 3 second-level top-grade black water mines can threaten many ordinary 3rd-level practitioners at the same time. However, Zhenkinzan is not an ordinary 3rd-level practitioner. As the electric lights burst and the lake water rolled, he pinched the seal in his hand, and the four-color spiritual energy gushing out from the four large tripods suddenly increased. As more four-color spiritual energy was injected, the four spirits atlas above also became more brilliant. It did not hide or avoid, but turned into an umbrella shape, soaring into the sky, carrying a huge aura, and resisting the strong explosion wave, flattening everything. When Jingluo, who was about to rush out of the lake, saw this scene, and his eyebrows jumped. I don't know when such a fierce man appeared on Beiwu Island. But just as he was thinking about this, he suddenly felt an amazing chill coming from the front of him. He clenched his fist, turned his head, and then saw the figure who killed Nai Kwangdao before, who had arrived in front of him and on the water surface without knowing when. The figure did not move, but just stood quietly on the water surface. But looking at the figure, his heart suddenly tightened. As if being strangled by something. If you want to die, I'll grant your wish. The next moment, Wen Jingluo suddenly showed an expression as if he had reached the end of his road, and his face was full of ferocity. He flipped his hand and took out more than a dozen black beads at once, throwing them at Chen Ronghuo and Zhen Qinzan who were chasing from behind. When these dozen black beads were thrown, the huge water dragon under him shook, and took him to change direction, trying to avoid Huanglin and escape from another direction. Huanglin's mystery made him too afraid. So much so that he had not yet noticed that Huanglin's cultivation was only at the peak of the second level. However, he had just turned a corner on the giant water dragon, and before he rushed out of the lake, he saw the demon puppet released by Chen Ronghuo blocking him. Wen Jingluo gritted his teeth. Below, Zhen Qinzan's face changed immediately after seeing Wen Jingluo actually throwing out more than a dozen black beads. Although his strength was extraordinary, he could not withstand more than a dozen dark mines at once. But Chen Ronghuo was a little surprised. Wen Jingluo had seen Zhen Qinzan's strength before. If he had more than a dozen dark mines in his hand, why did he only throw 3 instead of all or half? It was a matter of life and death. Wen Jingluo was the master of a town. Could it be that he didn't have such a decision? With a flash of his eyes, he immediately identified the beads. Iron beads made to imitate dark mines. Attributes, hard, and can block the soul power detection. It's really fake. After identifying the true appearance of these beads, Chen Ronghuo showed a sneer on his face. Wen Jingluo also has some means, but such means, when encountering him, it can only be regarded as bad luck. These are fake, don't worry about them. Chen Ronghuo said to Zhen Qinzan. Fake. Zhen Qinzan was surprised. But he knew that Chen Ronghuo would not joke with his life, so he had no reason not to believe it. Therefore, after he used the four spirits picture record to blast away the iron balls that were thrown at them, he went straight to the Wen Meridian to chase them again. And after those iron balls were deflected, they did not explode. Boom! At this time, Wen Jingluo had already controlled the huge water dragon under him and started a fierce battle with the demon puppet controlled by Chen Ronghuo. Because of the forbidden technique, the demon puppet was beaten backwards repeatedly. But there was no joy in his eyes. Because while he was fighting fiercely with the demon puppet, Zhen Qinzan and Chen Ronghuo from below had already rushed up. Zhen Qinzan unfolded the four spirits illustration, swung away the rolling lake water, and arrived in the blink of an eye. Even the mid-level third-level siren horse swam over from one side. He smiled bitterly in his heart, wondering how Chen Ronghuo and the others discovered the flaws in those fake hidden mines. At the same time, he also knew that he could not escape this time. Who are you from the Moli family? Then he took a deep breath, turned his head, and said to Chen Ronghuo and Zhen Qinzan, I know that your Moli family wants to take advantage of this chaos on Beiwu Island to restore its former glory. But it's still too difficult for you to do it alone. I am willing to join your magic family and let you drive me. I just ask you to let me live. In addition, I have a ghost contract talisman in my hand. As long as I use this ghost contract talisman, I can only obey your orders from now on. You must also know which one has the greatest gain compared to killing me. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 188. Hearing Wen Jingluo's words, Chen Ronghuo's eyes flashed. If Wen Jingluo surrendered sincerely, then he was very tactful. Thinking of this, he said coldly, "Take out the ghost contract talisman and let me see it." Naturally, he would not easily believe Wen Jingluo's words. But he had the ancient book, so he was not afraid that Wen Jingluo would deceive him. At this time, the more than 20-meter-long sea monster horse also rushed over. But it seemed to be able to understand human language, and after coming over, it did not attack Wen Jingluo. And this scene fell into Wen Jingluo's eyes, making his face even uglier. He guessed in his heart that the sea monster horse was probably with Chen Ronghuo. All of this was Chen Ronghuo's conspiracy. As for Chen Ronghuo's purpose, of course, it was to lead him and Nai Quangdao out of the territory, and then find an opportunity to kill them both. At the same time, Chen Ronghuo also set his sights on the sea monster horse. This big guy is quite powerful, and it seems that his intelligence is not weak either, but I don't know if he can be subdued. Thinking in his heart, he used the identification technique from the ancient book on it. Before, because he was too hasty, he had not yet identified the attributes of the sea monster horse. Sea monster horse, intermediate level 3. Attributes: huge strength, thick skin, silent and breathless. Qualifications: 3. Abilities: Soul Control LV2, high level. Water Control LV3, intermediate level. Note: this was originally a sea monster horse living in the sea. It was only because it was attracted by Dai Genzi, the lord of Tongluo town, with the sea spirit pill that it clashed with the devil mermaid and was teleported here. Chen Ronghuo was a little surprised to identify the attributes of the sea monster horse. The 5 smaller sea monster horses before did not have the ability of soul control and water control. It seems that these two abilities were mostly awakened after they broke through to the 3rd level. Of course, what surprised him even more was that this demon was actually brought here by Dai Genzi. Thinking of this, he immediately thought of the bottle of Halingdon that he got from Dai Genzi. Only then did he know the function of the bottle of Halingdon. Use this sea monster horse to contain Nai Quangdao and disrupt the alliance between Nai Quangdao and Wen Jingluo. At the same time, he also found the descendants of the Moli family. It seems that he is also a hero, but it's a pity. Chen Ronghuo shook his head a little. Dai Genzi obviously had great ambitions, but he died too miserably. Even until his death, he might not know how he died. At the same time, through Dai Genzi, Chen Ronghuo also knew that in this world, no one can be underestimated. Especially those who can become lords. Of course, Xuejun is an exception. Thinking of this, Chen Ronghuo recalled the attributes of Wen Jingluo that he had identified at the first sight of Wen Jingluo, so as not to miss anything. Wen Jingluo, Level 3 Early Magic Pen Master. Identity: Viscount, Lord of Yuanhe Town. Qualification: 3. Special ability: Magic Pen Transformation. After the magic pen is transformed, any word written with it can gather spiritual energy and form a corresponding effect, and the more words are written, the more powerful they are. Ability 1, writing the word water. Ability 2, writing the word dragon. Ability 3. Ability 10, making talismans. After Chen Ronghuo calmly identified the attributes of the large sea monster horse and recalled the attributes of Wen Jingluo, Wen Jingluo turned his wrist and took out a dark rectangular talisman from his storage ring after Chen Ronghuo's words fell. This talisman is not only dark in itself, but also has a trace of black gas emanating from it after it is taken out. After Chen Ronghuo set his eyes on it, he could even see that the black gas emanating from it was vaguely connected to form the appearance of an evil ghost. Ghost Contract Talisman, Level 3 Talisman. The refiner is Wenjing Gluo. This talisman seals a Level 3 evil ghost. After dripping blood to recognize the talisman as the master, it will be injected into the body of a life form of Level 3 or below. If it does not resist, a mark of an evil ghost can be branded on its soul. Through the mark of the evil ghost, the life and death of this life can be controlled. Note 1. The evil ghost sealed by this talisman has a part of its origin extracted through this part of the extracted evil ghost origin. The life and death of the evil ghost can be controlled. Once the evil ghost dies, the mark of the evil ghost will also disappear. Note 2. The ghost contract talisman is different from the demon contract. The demon contract cannot be lifted. Practitioners above level 5 can forcibly untie the constraints of the ghost contract talisman. The first time Wenjing Gluo took out such a ghost contract talisman, Chen Ronghuo identified its attributes. Then he looked at Wenjing Gluo, and a strange smile appeared on his face. After taking out the ghost contract talisman, Wenjing Gluo said, "With the background of your Moli clan, you should know about the ghost contract talisman, right? As long as there is no 5th level cultivator to remove this talisman for me, I will always be under your control. And there has not been a 5th level cultivator on our island for hundreds of years." "You are quite sensible," Chen Ronghuo said with a smile. "In that case, throw the ghost contract talisman over." Hearing Chen Ronghuo's words, Wenjing Gluo was relieved immediately, knowing that his life could probably be saved. Then he deliberately made a tangled look on his face, and after waiting for a while, he threw the ghost contract talisman to Chen Ronghuo. After being thrown out by Wenjing Gluo, the ghost contract talisman was wrapped in a trace of spiritual energy, and instantly broke through the lake water and arrived in front of Chen Ronghuo. Chen Ronghuo checked its properties again and found no problem before he reached out to grab it in his hand and broke through the layer of spiritual energy, forcing out a drop of blood and dripping it on it. After his blood merged into the ghost contract talisman and he could sense a special connection between himself and the ghost contract talisman, he immediately wrapped the talisman with the power of his soul and sent it back to Wenjing Gluo. Swish. Wenjing Gluo took the ghost contract talisman and glanced at Chen Ronghuo. He seemed to have made up his mind and tore it apart without hesitation. When the talisman was torn apart, an illusory evil ghost immediately rushed out of it. In the distance, Chen Ronghuo felt a slight connection between himself and the evil ghost. With a thought, the evil ghost shrank rapidly and turned into a strange talisman, rushing straight to Wenjing Gluo's forehead. Wenjing Gluo did not dodge. In a moment, Chen Ronghuo controlled the talisman transformed by the evil ghost and rushed into Wenjing Gluo's soul sea, imprinting it on Wenjing Gluo's soul. At this time, Wenjing Gluo was still protected by the words "avoid water," so there was no lake water around his body. When this scene happened, everyone could clearly see that beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. Being controlled by the ghost talisman was obviously not so comfortable. It was not until more than 10 seconds later that Wenjing Gluo recovered. He looked at Chen Ronghuo and Zhen Qinzan, who were still shrouded in a layer of white mist, and said in a hoarse voice, "We are now together, do you still want to hide your identity?" Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 189. Wenjing Gluo was a little curious. He didn't know who Chen Ronghuo and Zhen Qinzan were, and whether he had seen them before. Together, Chen Ronghuo smiled when he heard this. "It depends on whether you are willing to give me the soul essence extracted from the evil ghost before refining this ghost contract talisman." After Chen Ronghuo finished speaking, Wenjing Gluo, who had been in control of his wisdom, suddenly shrank his pupils. "What are you talking about? I don't understand." Seeing Wenjing Gluo's appearance, Zhen Qinzan, who had relaxed his vigilance, immediately raised his heart. Is there something wrong with the ghost contract talisman? He had heard of ghost contract talismans, but he didn't expect that the ghost contract talisman that Wenjing Gluo gave to Chen Ronghuo had problems. Don't understand. Chen Ronghuo sneered, and immediately activated the evil ghost mark imprinted on Wenjing Gluo's soul through the air. Ah! The pain of the soul is far more painful than the pain of the flesh. Wenjing Gluo couldn't bear it, and he howled miserably immediately. Chen Ronghuo did not punish Wenjing Gluo for too long. He just briefly activated the evil ghost mark to let Wenjing Gluo feel the unbearable pain, and then stopped. As Wenjing Gluo said before, it was much better to subdue him than to kill him and only gain the power of faith of a town. After Chen Ronghuo stopped his tricks, Wenjing Gluo also recovered after a while. His face was pale, and even his body was shaking. Of course, compared with the pain, what made him most desperate was that Chen Ronghuo actually saw through his tricks. After he refined the ghost contract talisman, he had the hope of using it to contract a third-level cultivator or a third-level demon, but he did the opposite and kept it, preparing to use it as his life-saving trump card. This secret method was obtained by him from an ancient incomplete book, and almost no one on Beiwu Island knew about it. But he did not expect that his tricks were seen through by Chen Ronghuo at a glance. Wenjing Gluo, my methods are far more powerful than you think, Chen Ronghuo said calmly. If you don't want to continue suffering, hand over the soul source you extracted from the evil ghost. You are really amazing. After Wenjing Gluo recovered, he flipped his hand and took out another talisman and threw it to Chen Ronghuo, saying, "This is a sealing talisman. The evil ghost source you want is here." This time, Wenjing Gluo threw the talisman a little slowly. When the talisman was thrown to Chen Ronghuo, he stared at Chen Ronghuo with a slight uneasiness. Chen Ronghuo didn't care about this. He looked at the new talisman flying towards him, smiled slightly, and took it in his hand. Then he looked at Wenjing Gluo and said, "You are quite sensible this time. Okay, now that we are done, wait a little longer and then go back to Yuanhe town. After you go back, prepare the power of faith in Yuanhe town. I will go to get it after I deal with Guangdao town." Wenjing Gluo was stunned. He looked at Chen Ronghuo and Zhen Qinzan, who were still shrouded in white mist, and asked in confusion, "Do you believe me? How do you know that I didn't split the origin of the evil ghost into two? If it were him, he would definitely have this idea." By analogy, he didn't believe that Chen Ronghuo didn't have this idea. "I've said before, my methods are not far more powerful than you think," Chen Ronghuo said calmly. "Moreover, I not only know that the evil spirit origin in the seal is intact, I also know how much faith power you have in Yuanhe town." Wenjing Gluo's heart suddenly became stern. "I have learned a lesson once, and I will never dare to deceive again this time." "I hope so," Chen Ronghuo said indifferently. "In addition to this matter, after you go back, remember to send someone to take over the Guangdao town, but you don't need to take over all of the Guangdao town, and the speed doesn't need to be too fast, you only need to take over a small half of the Guangdao town." Wenjing Gluo said anxiously, "I have no problem getting people to accept the Guangdao town. It's just that half of the territory of Guangdao town is adjacent to our Yuanhe town, and the other half is adjacent to the territory of Tanxiang, the Xinwu town. Tanxiang is extremely powerful. He killed Hu Shen, the lord of Zhejiang town, not long ago. He is already the lord of two towns. I am seriously injured now. I am afraid." "I naturally know what you said." Chen Ronghuo interrupted Wenjing Gluo and said, "That's why I asked you to slow down so as not to have a big conflict with him too early." The word "too early" immediately made Wenjing Gluo feel bitter. This time, he really got on the pirate ship. And he was afraid that he would not be able to get off this pirate ship in a short time. After dealing with Wenjing Gluo, Chen Ronghuo turned his eyes and fell on the 6 sea monster horses. At this time, The 5 small sea monster horses that were previously scorched by electricity had already gathered next to the big sea monster horse, rubbing against each other, and seemed very friendly. Looking at these big guys, Chen Ronghuo was a little worried. There was such a big commotion here just now, someone will definitely come to check it out later. If these big guys don't hide well, they might expose him. Wen Jingluo has never seen his true face, but the 5 smaller sea monster horses have seen him, and Zhenkinzan and others. Thinking about it, Chen Ronghuo suddenly asked tentatively, the fluctuations of the battle just now were too big, and there will definitely be strong people here later. Those people are different from me, and they are very likely to attack you. But it's probably too late for you to escape now. I wonder if you have any plans. After reaching the 3rd level, some powerful demon races can pass on their bloodline inheritance and speak human language, automatically mastering the common language of the gods' continent. In Chen Ronghuo's opinion, these sea monster horses should not be included in this list. Otherwise, he might have identified it just now. But they can't speak human language, but they may not be unable to understand some human language. The spirituality of these demons, especially the sea monster horse in the middle stage of the 3rd level, is quite good. Maybe they have obtained some bloodline inheritance and can understand human language. Gulp. Upon hearing this, the sea monster horse immediately spit out a lot of bubbles at Chen Ronghuo. It looks like it is a little anxious after listening to Chen Ronghuo's words. It can indeed understand human language. At the same time, because it just fought side by side with Chen Ronghuo, and its children told it in sea monster horse language that Chen Ronghuo had never hurt them from beginning to end, it also has some goodwill towards Chen Ronghuo. Can you understand? At the same time, seeing the expression of the sea monster horse, Chen Ronghuo's eyes suddenly lit up. If this sea monster horse can really understand human language, it can save a lot of trouble. Thinking of this, he immediately said, I have an idea. You all know that there is an illusion array at the bottom of the lake. I can take you to hide in the illusion array, so that you will not be found by those strong men. But in this case, for the next period of time, you will not be able to enter the lake, and you can only stay in that illusion array. But you can also rest assured that after a period of time, things will calm down, and I will come to take you back to the sea. Chen Ronghuo really wants to subdue these big guys. But for him now, this is obviously impossible. So he thought of such an idea first, planning to hide these big guys first, and let them hide in the illusion array at the bottom of the lake first. At the same time, he also has another calculation for this matter. That is to try to use these big guys to deal with Tan Xiong, the lord of the Xuanhuan town, who will definitely occupy a large amount of territory in Quangdao town in the near future, just like he just dealt with Nai Quangdao. This time, as long as he can quickly advance to the 3rd level, he plans to do something big. That is to occupy half of Beiwu Island with the force of thunder. Gulp. Hearing Chen Ronghuo's words, the sea monster horse's eyes immediately lit up, and hurriedly spit out bubbles again, turned around, and repeatedly signaled Chen Ronghuo to take them over quickly. Thanks to the book friend Li-Fi short for the 5,000 coin reward, and the 5 book friends Boys Like the Wind, White U3 Eyes, 5724064112, Angry Cheng Ge and Moushi for the 100 coin reward. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 190. The palace where the Devil Mermaid King is located is entirely shrouded in a mermaid illusion formation and a waterproof formation. Among them, the water-avoiding formation only serves to avoid water. The level of the mermaid illusion array is as high as the 4th level. Even if most people are in front of it, they won't see any flaws. Chen Ronghuo spent a lot of energy accumulated in ancient books before he found this formation again. And found a way to enter this formation. As for the method to break this illusory formation, even if he consumes all the energy accumulated in the ancient books, there is nothing he can do. Standing in front of the illusion formation, Chen Ronghuo said, "This is it, you go in. The way to enter this magic array is to close your eyes, step in with one foot, then take it back, and then step in again. 3 times in a row, you will enter. But remember that after you go in, you must not come out until I come to you. The method of entering this illusion array will change every once in a while. If you come out, you may not be able to enter. This mermaid illusion formation is somewhat special, that's why it is like this. Some magic formations, even if they are at a lower level, are not so easy to enter." Zhen Qinzan on the side was very surprised. After arriving here, he only felt a slight fluctuation, but could not completely see through this illusory formation. But he didn't expect that Chen Ronghuo would even find a way to temporarily enter. Gududu. The sea monster horse nodded and spit out big bubbles. Gududududu. The 5 little siren horses also made the same move. They cannot speak human language and can only express their gratitude to Chen Ronghuo in this way. Especially the 5 little siren horses. They knew very well that if it weren't for Chen Ronghuo this time, they would have lost their mother forever. Looking at these big guys who looked cute even though they were huge and soaked in water, a smile appeared on Chen Ronghuo's face. In a moment, these big sea monster horses followed Chen Ronghuo's instructions and walked into the illusion formation. They came here, weren't they behind your back? After these big guys entered, Wenjing Gluo finally couldn't help but ask. This was the first time he knew that there was actually a formation hidden in the lake. Just watching Chen Ronghuo interact with those siren horses, it seemed like they were not familiar with each other beforehand. Of course not. Chen Ronghuo smiled, it's Dai Genzi's fault that they are here. It's just that Dai Genzi didn't have enough blessings, and he died before he could play their role. What I am doing is that the predecessors planted trees so that the descendants can enjoy the shade. Then Chen Ronghuo said, let's go, we have to hurry up. If we wait any longer, someone will probably come to check the situation. Immediately, he collected the demon puppets and took several people to the lake. At this time, don't you plan to let me see your true appearance? After getting out of the lake, Wenjing Gluo looked at Chen Ronghuo and Zhen Qinzan, who were still shrouded in white mist, with a look of reluctance. This time, I can say that I really lost both my wife and my troops. But under such circumstances, he didn't even know who he was falling into. It's not necessary. Chen Ronghuo shook his head lightly and said, your mission has been completed. Then return to Xuanhuan town immediately and prepare the power of faith. When I take away the power of faith from Crazy Blade Town, go and find it. Also, if you meet other people and ask what happened here, you can just blame the demonic ritual relic. Push it to the legacy of the magic gift. An inexplicable color flashed in Wenjing Gluo's eyes. Then he took a deep look at Chen Ronghuo, and with a big stroke of his hand, he drew the word flying in the void. After letting these 2 words stick to his body, he quickly flew towards the important town of Xuanhuan. Just when he turned around and flew away, he thought of the previous siren horses and closed his eyes again. With his IQ, he could easily guess that with those siren horses around, whoever occupies the territory of the Crazy Knife Town would definitely be in bad luck. Although Chen Ronghuo had told him that those siren horses were not his fault. But looking at the trust that those siren horses have in Chen Ronghuo, we can know that it is not difficult for Chen Ronghuo to use them to do something. Let's go too. After watching Wenjing Gluo leave, Chen Ronghuo turned his head and looked into the lake again, and then let Zhen Qinzan take him and Ho San to speed towards the stronghold of Crazy Blade. He didn't let Wenjing Gluo leave after subduing Wenjing Gluo because he was worried that those sea monster horses would not listen to his advice. If that happened, he can only destroy the horse with his own hands. Fortunately, the final result was not bad. Devil's Fish Lake is within the jurisdiction of Crazy Knife Town, and is only a dozen miles away from the Lord's Mansion of Crazy Knife Town. The distance of more than 10 miles was only a few minutes for Qian-san. At this time, it was less than 10 minutes since Nai Quangdao died. Even Nai Quangdao's lord statue has not turned dim yet. So even though the people in the Crazy Sword stronghold were panicked when they heard the huge noise coming from the Devil's Fish Lake. But in the Crazy Knife Town, there was no chaotic scene like what Chen Ronghuo saw last time in the Tongluo town. What a big white cloud! On the city wall of Crazy Blade's stronghold, a guard inadvertently raised his head and looked at a group of white clouds flying from a distance, feeling a little surprised. You know what, this white cloud is really big. Another guard also raised his head, but after saying this, his face suddenly changed and said, "No, this white cloud is not formed naturally. How can a naturally formed white cloud fly so low and so fast?" Huh. Just as he finished speaking, the huge white cloud had brought a gust of wind, past them, and instantly arrived above the Lord's mansion in the Mad Blade Town. Boom boom boom. Following that, a series of huge roars sounded from the Mad Blade Town. In the back, all the guards of the Mad Blade Town who had just seen the huge white cloud turned pale. Enemy attack! Exclamations sounded from all directions. Then the guards of the Mad Blade Town immediately rushed to the Lord's mansion from all directions. But some people who were too close to the Lord's mansion, before rushing to the Lord's mansion, looked at the huge white cloud covering the entire Lord's mansion, but no one dared to step forward. Boom! Just when most people were halfway there, accompanied by a sudden loud noise, all the movement in front stopped abruptly. Then everyone saw that the huge white cloud that had just flown into the town of Quangdao flew up again and flew straight into the distance. This scene made the hearts of those who had not yet arrived tighten. Vaguely, they knew that this time, things might be serious. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A moment later, one figure after another rushed to the Lord's mansion in the town of Quangdao. But at this time, Nai Quangdao's lord statue had turned into rubble and scattered all over the ground. In addition, the guards who were originally guarding in front of the lord's statue, who were the most trusted by their lord, all disappeared without a trace, and no one knew where they went. Seeing this scene, everyone felt a chill in their hearts, as if the sky was about to fall. All this happened too fast. At this time, in the huge white cloud created by Zhenkinzan, Chen Ronghuo took a dozen black and red skulls into his body, revealing a hint of satisfaction. However, what satisfied him was not these skulls, but the power of faith he had just obtained. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 191. Father. In the important town of Quangdao, Nai Tianxin, the third son of Nai Quangdao, rushed back to the Lord's mansion. When he saw the Lord's statues scattered all over the ground, his eyes became dizzy. It had been 10 minutes since his father's exclamation came from the Devil Fish Lake. After such a long time, is his father still there? The collapsed and scattered Lord's statues seemed to be telling him something. Whoosh! He ran into the Lord's mansion quickly. But there was no one in the Lord's mansion. His mother, eldest brother, second brother, and sister were all gone. Demon Li descendants, I will never coexist with you. He suddenly raised his head and let out a sad roar. Puff! Suddenly, a shadow appeared from behind him, put the dagger in front of his neck and gently scratched it. Blood splashed, and Nai Tianxin fell to the ground with a plop. When Nai Tianxin died, the figure appeared. Judging from his appearance, it was Huang Lin. At this time, the cultivators who were still outside had no idea about this scene. Nai Quangdao's 4 sons and 2 daughters have been dealt with. The only ones left are the 2 sons he hid. Huang Lin muttered to himself in his heart, and then his figure disappeared again. Chen Ronghuo and Zhenkinzan had left, but he stayed. Nai Quangdao died in their hands. If Nai Quangdao's relatives were kept, they might get into trouble because of the exposure of the matter. As for the fact that Nai Quangdao had two sons hidden outside, it was naturally calculated by Chen Ronghuo using ancient books. Nai Quangdao was dead, so it was much easier for Chen Ronghuo to calculate these. Then, Huanglin had just hidden his figure, and the others outside rushed in together. But as they saw Nai Tianxin dead on the ground, everyone's face suddenly showed dense cold sweat, but no matter how they searched, they could not find the murderer. Whoosh! Whoosh! Then, after a while, two figures with amazing momentum flew over from two directions. One of the two figures was wearing a purple robe and had a black mole on his forehead. He was Long Fi Feng, the younger brother of Long Fi Hung, the lord of Longtan Town. The other was wearing a green robe. He was Chi Mu, the leader of the guard team of King Mu Town, which was one of the three major towns on Beiwu Island, along with Longtan Town. Quangdao Town is the southernmost part of Beiwu Island. It is on the edge of the territory, close to Tongluo Town, Yuanhe Town, Xinwu Town, and Zhejiang Town. But now, Tongluo Town and Zhejiang Town have been destroyed. And the Longtan Town where Long Fi Feng came this time and King Mu Town where Chi Mu was, are actually two of the three major towns in the middle of Beiwu Island. The two major towns are not connected to Quangdao Town. After the two arrived, they saw the collapsed statue of the Lord of Nai Quangdao. Is Nai Quangdao dead? Seeing this scene, both of them frowned. If Nai Quangdao was really dead, then the original 13 lords of the important towns on Beiwu Island would become 9. Swish! Long Fi Feng grabbed a warrior with a fairly good cultivation base and brought him to his front, and began to interrogate him. The warrior who was caught in the sky by him did not dare to hide anything and hurriedly told everything he knew. It's Beiwu again. After a moment, after Long Fi Feng interrogated what he wanted, his eyes suddenly condensed. Then he pinched his fingers and performed secret techniques like last time, trying to find out if there was any residual powerful aura here, but still found nothing. Brother Long, do you know anything? Chi Mu, who was dressed in a green robe, asked. The last time Dai Genzi died, the person who broke the statue of Lord Dai Genzi was the one who rode the white mist to and from the place, Long Fi Feng said with a gloomy face. Now it seems that Nai Quangdao was also killed. Before I came, I heard Nai Quangdao shout the words Demon Clan, so the one who killed Nai Quangdao was probably the Demon Clan. Demon Clan, Chi Mu also looked serious, and then he looked around and said, Nai Quangdao and Wenjing Gluo are allies, Brother Long, are you willing to go with me to take a look? Such a big thing happened here this time, and Wenjing Gluo and Tan Xiong didn't come. Something is wrong. Long Fi Feng nodded, that's what I meant. But the battlefield of the previous battle doesn't seem to be here. Let's find that battlefield first and check it out. Swoosh. Then the two asked someone else and found out that Nai Quangdao had gone to the Devilfish Lake before, so they flew to the Devilfish Lake together. At the same time, in the Xinwu town connected to the Quangdao town, Tan Xiong, who had captured the important town of Zhejiang not long ago, sat in the secret room and waved his hands forward. Suddenly, black and white mist came out of his hands and spread in the secret room. Level 3 late stage, refining the black and white mist is indeed the fastest way to improve strength. After a moment, he collected the two-color mist and stood up from the secret room. On his burly body, there seemed to be black and white lines, making him look a bit weird. Then he looked in the corner and saw a head of a person who died with his eyes open. If there are people who know here, they will know that this head is the head of Hu Shen, the lord of Zhejiang, who was torn apart by Tan Xiong. The black and white mist refined by Tan Xiong was taken from Hu Shen. A wisp of black and white mist allowed me to reach the late 3rd level from the middle 3rd level. I wonder what will happen if there is another wisp. He walked out of the secret room with a gleam in his eyes. As soon as Tan Xiong walked out of the secret room, a guard hurriedly reported, Lord, Just now in the direction of the Crazy Blade Town, there was a sound of third-level practitioners fighting each other. Crazy Blade Town. Tan Xiong raised his head and glanced in the direction of the Crazy Blade Town. After leaving the Crazy Blade Town, Chen Ronghuo immediately came to Yuanhe Town with Zhen Qinzan. When they were still a few miles away from Yuanhe Town, he slightly activated the evil ghost mark, and soon after, Wen Jingluo came to the two of them with a slightly pale face. This is all the faith power of our Yuanhe Town. After arriving in front of Chen Ronghuo, Wen Jingluo immediately used his noble mark to condense a large amount of faith power into a drop of water and sent it to Chen Ronghuo. Chen Ronghuo did not hesitate at all and directly collected all the faith power. Seeing the power of faith taken away by Chen Ronghuo, Wen Jingluo's face turned bitter, but he could do nothing about it. Okay, you go back first. Chen Ronghuo looked at Wen Jingluo and said, if you work hard under me, I may be able to remove your evil ghost mark in the future. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 192. Wen Jingluo nodded, said goodbye to Chen Ronghuo, and returned to Yuanhe Town. As for Chen Ronghuo's suggestion to remove the evil ghost mark, he didn't even think about it. Lord, are we going back to Lushwiven Town now? After Wen Jingluo left, Zhen Qinzan asked. No. Chen Ronghuo shook his head, let's take a detour to Longtan Town first, and then return to the town. Go to Longtan Town. Zhen Qinzan was a little surprised, not knowing what Chen Ronghuo was going to do in Longtan Town. Longtan Town, Qingmu Town, and Black Horse Town, these three major towns, are located in the middle of Beiwu Island. The territories are all rich in resources and have many strong people. Each of the three major towns has at least 3 third-level practitioners. And there is at least 1 third-level late-stage practitioner in charge. As for whether there are third-level peak or fourth-level practitioners hidden, few people know. Yes, seeing Zhen Qinzan's doubts, Chen Ronghuo smiled and said, I will practice in seclusion next. In order to prevent any trouble in Longtan Town during this period, let's go there to make some noise, so that they can be quiet for a while. Make some noise. Zhen Qinzan was thoughtful when he heard it. Whoosh. Then he propped up 4 large tripods, carrying Chen Ronghuo, and flew straight to Longtan Town. From Yuanhe Town, which is adjacent to Longtan Town, it didn't take long for the two to reach their destination. After arriving here, Chen Ronghuo chose a remote place, released the magic puppet, and immediately controlled the magic puppet to attack Zhen Qinzan. Boom! Boom! The loud noise continued. After about 7 or 8 seconds, after the magic puppet and Zhen Qinzan fought and destroyed a large area, Chen Ronghuo collected the magic puppet, and then quickly flew to the direction of Lushwiven Town with Zhen Qinzan. Of course, during this process, Chen Ronghuo would not forget to seal all the auras. After unlocking 2 pages of the ancient book's seal, he was already able to do this with ease. However, probably because the air in the world of gods is full of spiritual energy and the medium is different, the sound propagates very quickly in the air. Not long after Chen Ronghuo made this noise, Long Fiheng, the lord of Longtan Town, stood up from Longtan Town and looked over from afar. After a moment, he said in a cold voice, Long Wu, you wear the wind dragon armor and go out to see what's going on, and see who dares to go wild in our Longtan Town. Yes. A guard in black beside him responded, quickly took off into the air, and flew in the direction of the wind from which the noise came. During the flight, a green light flashed on the black guard's body, and a set of green armor suddenly appeared. After the set of armor appeared, his speed instantly increased. At the same time, in the Quangdao town, Long Fifeng, who was still checking the Devilfish Lake but found nothing, also heard the huge movement coming from the Longtan town. How brave! When he heard that the movement came from the direction of Longtan town, a trace of ferocity suddenly appeared on his face. He didn't even say hello to Chi Mu, and flew straight to Longtan town back. Troublesome times. Chi Mu frowned slightly. Then he thought about it and decided to go to Xuanhuan town to see how Wenjing Gluo was doing. The Devilfish Lake was not too far from Xuanhuan town. It didn't take long for him to rush to Xuanhuan town. But when he saw Wenjing Gluo, before he could speak, Wenjing Gluo followed Chen Ronghuo's instructions and said, "Brother Qi, I know what you want to ask. The people who killed Nai Kuangdao were the descendants of Moli, a total of 3 people. One of them used a magic puppet, but because the 3 of them hid their identities, I don't know who they are." "Are you injured?" Chi Mu stared at Wenjing Gluo. Yes, Wenjing Gluo's face was pale at this time, but when he heard Chi Mu's question, he smiled faintly and said, "Why, Brother Qi, don't you want to take me down while I'm seriously injured?" Chi Mu shook his head. "If it was somewhere else, I really had this plan. But in your land card, forget it. In his own territory, the Lord can consume the power of faith with the cooperation of the Lord's statue and temporarily enhance his strength. Although Wenjing Gluo is only a 3rd level early cultivator, if he is willing to consume the power of faith, he can even exert the strength comparable to that of a 3rd level late cultivator." Hearing Chi Mu say this, Wenjing Gluo breathed a sigh of relief. At this time, he had already lost a trace of faith. As long as Chi Mu probed him, he could find out his depth. Fortunately, Chi Mu did not do so. Next, Chi Mu asked Wenjing Gluo for some information and quickly returned to King Mu Town. "Long Wu, have you found anything?" In Longtan Town, Long Fifeng saw Long Wu, who was looking for clues immediately after returning here. Second Master Long Wu shook his head and said, "I have searched this place. I can see that the people who just fought here should be 2 3rd level practitioners. But who they are, why they are fighting, and where they went, I don't know. Damn it." Long Fifeng used secret techniques to search, but still found nothing. Just when they were furious, Chen Ronghuo and Zhen Qinzan had returned to Lushwiven town. "Lord, I am lucky to have fulfilled my mission." Not long after, Huanglin also rushed back. Chen Ronghuo nodded. "Killing them all sounds a bit cruel, but if he doesn't do it, when he unifies Beiwu Island in the future, his enemies will be able to think that he did what happened today, even if they have no evidence. So instead of causing trouble in the future, it is better to get things done now. If he had just come to this world, he might not be as decisive as he is now. But now, when he did this, he just felt a little emotional." After signaling Huanglin to stand aside, Chen Ronghuo looked at Zhen Qinzan and said, "Brother Zhen, if it weren't for you this time, I would definitely not have achieved such a harvest. However, the situation on Beiwu Island is complicated now, and we must improve our strength as soon as possible. Therefore, I plan to use half of the power of faith I gained this time, and Huanglin will use the other half, in order to reach the 3rd level as soon as possible. As for the reward for you," Lord Zhen Qinzan interrupted Chen Ronghuosan, "I want the giant crocodile skeleton that contains the essence of the 3rd level demon inner elixir that you asked Ho-san to bring back last time. That thing is of some use to me." Chen Ronghuo was startled when he heard this, and immediately understood that Zhen Qinzan said this because he was worried that he would not have anything to reward him. He smiled and said, "Okay, since you want the giant crocodile skeleton, I will have someone move it to you later. As for the remaining rewards, I will wait until I break through." He really has nothing in his hand to reward Xia Zhen-san, but after he breaks through, the ancient book unseals a sealed page again, his ability becomes stronger again, and his soul power also increases greatly. What else will he want to calculate? It's much simpler. At the same time, the speed at which the ancient books accumulate energy will also increase. After arranging for Zhen Qinzan and Huanglin, Chen Ronghuo called Xiaoruo, who was in charge of the town's internal affairs, and after giving him some instructions, he walked into the secret room and began to retreat. Meow. As for the fat cat, before he retreated, he tossed it casually in front of the magic gift hiding in the shadow of his lord's statue. There will be more tonight. I will try my best to come up with 2 more chapters, but you can read it tomorrow.